Hello, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Danielle Ling. I'm the Associate Editor at PropertyCasualty360.com and National Underwriter Property and Casualty Magazine. And today I'm joined by Troy Korsgaden for our second podcast in a series. He is an expert consultant in the insurance industry with over 30 years of professional experience in the field. He's the author of Discussion Partner, A Radical Transformation to Unrivaled Service in the Insurance Industry, in which he discusses the digital revolution and its impact on agent strategies and customer relations. Troy, thanks for joining us for part 2. So happy to have you back.
Excited to be here, Danielle.
Great. So last time we talked about staffing and recruiting issues in the insurance industry, and you offered some great strategies on how to recruit and retain top talent. So today we're going to talk about agents and the challenges they face in an increasingly digital world. Troy, you talk about in your book how industry professionals need to keep up with the changing needs of their customers, who not just want, but they expect to get everything faster, cheaper, easier, and have more shopping options than ever. So can you just kind of start us off by giving a rundown of how agent-client relationships have evolved and changed, and how technology has changed the sales process?
Definitely, and we'll just start with that. How has it changed the process? Well, it used to be most agents and their team members were product peddlers, so they were just presenting, here's your quote, here's your price, and do you want to buy from me? Today, it's really a real customer experience, and I talk about it as part of an ecosystem. So is the agency firm, is the agent and their team members important? Of course they are. They hold their client's hand through the maze of madness. There's so many choices. They need somebody to hold their hand. But it is an ecosystem, right? People have gotten used today. They love apps. They love technology. They love speed. I mean, it's all about speed, who can get there the fastest with the service and the product. And so it's really embracing that technology instead of just waiting for it to be perfect. It's really getting to the marketplace and improving as you go along, Kaizen, if you will, just small improvements every day.
What are some specific challenges some agents and brokers are dealing with as the sales process becomes more and more digital?
Well, it's hard to decide as an agency owner or a firm leader, and you're trying to decide, okay, what do we use? Or, again, the consumer or the business owner has so many choices, right? And so where do I begin? I get that question a lot when I go out and do public speaking. Where do I start? So let's just use technology. Where do I start? The first thing that the firm or the leader needs to do is coalesce with their team on what they have currently. So do an assessment. That's just the first basic thing you need to do. What computers do we have? What laptops do we have? What handhelds do we have? What method do we have for texting people? Because, hey, let's get real. People would rather have a text today than they would get an email, although they still use email as part of the ecosystem. Text is part of the ecosystem. So all of this needs to be assessed, and then to make decisions on investments, the dollar amount we're going to spend or the time we're going to spend, we want to make sure that we do it wisely. So we got to get a level set on where we're at.
For agents who might be struggling, who could they look to for notes? What are the most successful agents doing right, and what are struggling agents doing wrong?
So I'll probably answer this a little different than you think I would answer it. I think everybody's struggling, including me, right? And I work with tech companies. As a consultant, I get behind the curtain. There's a lot of great technology out there, but again, it's an avalanche, it's a tsunami of what do I use, what don't I use. And there are examples out there of firms and carriers providing to their firms technology that you can use. And I say consider it all. The ones that are succeeding are the ones that don't wait for the next door neighbor to get it right and then join in a Me Too moment. What they want to do is they want to decide, okay, me too, I want to get this done today. And so how do you do that? Again, you do the assessment, but then you got to have a roadmap. And we prioritize everything that we do. And if I own a firm and I'm in Kansas, or I own a firm and I'm in Manhattan, or I own a firm and I'm out in New Mexico, hey, my roadmap's going to look a little bit different than everybody else's, but is technology a priority? And you can't have too many priorities, but this one's got to be at the top of the list, right? Because that's how people are doing business today, not because it's cost savings for us, because they want ease of doing business and they want stuff fast. So what's available today, and what priority system can I use to make sure I'm always thinking about this in my roadmap every day to execute? Ideas are great, but you've got to execute.
So give us the secret. What are insurance customers really looking for? We want it. They want it fast. They want it easy. But how much? What's the main concern for them? Is it price? Is it their personal experience with agents? Is it their tech processes? What's the most important thing for customers in 2019?
Sure, all of the above for sure. But again, we got to prioritize. So I would say this: if we're selling personal insurance, we've got to have an app or apps, multiple, because if I'm an independent carrier representative, I might have 10 or 12 different contracts with companies. And so the minimum I've got to have to get an ID card when I'm down at the motor vehicle department, or I get pulled over, or I get into an accident, there's got to be a minimum that we're going to provide so that we're giving the customer what they desire and have every right to expect. Now, on top of that, I'm a business owner, and all the business owners out there that are listening, they know I've got to do more with less. Again, more with less, because commissions aren't as high as they used to be 10 years ago or 5 years ago. Contingencies might not be as big for some agents. And so how do we give a better level of service? I talk about this in Discussion Partner. It's all about the customer. And so if the customer wants the ID card, that's a must-have. If they want a roadside service app, that's a must-have. And you've just got to decide as a owner or as a firm leader, what is it we must have, and then everything else goes on the priority list, but lower down on the totem pole.
So the next part to that, for those who might be struggling to adapt, who are recognizing their technology gaps and want to fill them but don't really know how, or intimidated by AI, big data, chatbots, how would you suggest they get their feet in the water and kind of get the ball rolling?
Sure. So let's talk about big data first. As we talk about big data, don't think of it in the macro sense. Think of it in the customer sense, the micro sense. What do they want? Big data helps us. It helps us with rating. It helps us with claims. It helps us with service. AI and big data are here. The question is, can you disseminate it and put it into the customer's language and give it to them in a way that they feel that you're adding value to the relationship and they don't have to go get it somewhere else? So it's being able to explain how that works. So AI, as an example, hey, it doing more with less is knowing who to talk to, right? Because if you've got a prospect and you're working with that person for 3 or 4 weeks and they don't pan out, wouldn't it be better to know through artificial intelligence who has the propensity to buy, right? Because maybe they fit the model of the carrier or carriers you represent. So I'm not afraid of big data, because I take the big data and go, okay, what can I get out of this that's going to help my customer and help my business? And I make it simple. Everything I do, I got to make it easy, because if I do, then my staff and my team members will use it. And we all know that to be true. Now, as we think about big data, how can we bring it down and go, how does this affect our local firm or multiple firms that we represent? And so I'm always looking for a way to simplify, but don't be afraid. Jump in, and you're going to see it's not that scary.
So going back to customer needs, they kind of want it all. Fast, cheap, easy, but still want to be able to pick up the phone and talk to a person and, talk to chatbots who talk like they do. So how would you suggest or recommend agents balance all of these elements of being digital but also still being human?
Without a doubt, it's really that ecosystem I talked about, a distribution ecosystem. And a lot of agents and their team members fight it because they think, well, it's going to make us obsolete. Well, hey, I talk about it in the book. The ATM did not get rid of personal bankers. Are there less of them? Probably. Yeah, I'm sure there is. But when I inherit $300,000, I don't put it in the ATM machine. And I like the ATM machine because I don't need every little transaction going through me if I'm a banker. However, I don't want them to think they don't need me either. So a lot of it has to do with how you position yourself, and you make sure that you interject yourself at the right times. Again, going back to your question about big data and about AI, these things can inform us on when to call a customer just to say hello, or when to call a customer when they may be paying off their house or their car. And that could trigger another need for more insurance or even financial services. So it really is focusing and making sure that you're telling your story, that you're a part of the new world, and you're not totally disengaging. And I think that your question gives the answer. How do you stay in the game?
So just on a final end note, everyone's always trying to get the next step ahead for leaving, get where they need to be. The technology is just so rapidly advancing, and it's a struggle for a lot of people to keep up. But still looking ahead, because you have to. What is your biggest piece of advice for agents to meet their customer demands, to get up to date with their technology, and be in the game in 2019 and beyond?
The first thing I would do is I would become a student of whatever's important. So one of the ways I got into technology and really behind the curtain was I started studying it, and I started meeting people. And you'd be surprised. It doesn't matter whether you live in Spokane or you live in, let's just say, South Carolina. There's always somebody that knows something about tech wherever you're at. And you want to meet those people, get to know them, and then you want to read every day about it. I love to read books. I love to read magazine articles. You wrote one the other day on digital. And it was safe driving, I believe, was what it was about. And I got to know a firm that handles safe driving apps. And it's not that I made money off of them. I just got to pick their brain. And so when I'm doing my own due diligence and assessments, I now know what I'm talking about. I don't need to be a complete expert, but I have to have some fundamental knowledge. So if you're from a small town like I am, it doesn't matter. You still need to study and be a student of whatever issue is important. So the first thing I would do is just set aside 15 or 20 minutes every day to read and inform yourself on the things that are important to you and to your customers.
All right, well, that was all really great insight and hopefully really helpful for our readers and for agents and all lines of insurance professionals. I just want to thank you so much for joining us again today, Troy. We really appreciate your insight, and looking forward to podcast number 3.
Thanks, Danielle. Have a great evening.
All right, you too. For more, stay connected with PC360 and sign up for our e-newsletters. And you can follow me on Twitter at PC360_risk or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you about any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in the future. Again, my name is Danielle Ling, and thanks so much for joining us.